Sunday's section of the lesson says, read Matthew 20 verse 32. And that says, Jesus stopped and called them. What do you want me to do for you? He asked. Read the into the story portion and use the questions in the out of the story section to guide your study. This week's lesson gives you three perspectives of the same event: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. As you read, you'll notice slightly different details given by each writer. What insights did you gain as you paid attention to these details? How is the leper's encounter with Jesus like every believer's experience with sin and salvation? How does this story portray how we should come to Christ? How does this story portray how Christ responds to people who come to him in need? What do you think is the most important verse in this story and why? So let's go to the into the story and the questions from the out of the story section of the lesson. Into the story. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt down before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, can you make me clean?" Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately he was cured of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, "See that you don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them." A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus was indignant. He reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately, the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. Jesus sent him away at once with a strong warning. "See that you don't tell this to anyone, but go, show yourselves to the priests, and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Instead, he went out and began talking freely, spreading the news. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places. Yet, the people still came to him from everywhere. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. Then Jesus ordered him, "Don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Yet the news about him spread all the more, so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Matthew 8 verses 1 to 4, Mark 1 verses 40 to 45, and Luke 5 verses 12 to 16. So those are the accounts of the stories as given by Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Compare the three perspectives of the same event and note how the stories are different and how they are similar. What words and phrases do Mark and Luke use that Matthew leaves out? What words or phrases does Luke use that Mark and Matthew leave out? What words or phrases does Mark alone use? How is the disease of leprosy like sin? The leper makes an interesting appeal by saying, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Is there any question from the leper's perspective as to whether Jesus is able to heal him or not? What is the primary issue? Why do you think someone with leprosy would think this way? And we can read John 9 1 to 3, 5 to 13 and 14, and Mark 2 verses 3 to 5, Isaiah 59 verses 1 and 2. So let's go through those passages. It says here, John 9 verses 1 to 3, Jesus heals a man born blind. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. John 5 verse 13 says, the man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. Mark 2 verses 3 to 5 says, some men came, bringing to him a paralyzed man carried by 4 of them. Since they could not get to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus by digging through it, and then lowered the mat the man was lying on. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, son, your sins are forgiven. Isaiah 59 verse 1 talks about sin, confession, and redemption. Surely the arm of the Lord is not too short to save you, nor his ears too dull to hear. Why do you think this story is in the Bible? What is the message God has in it for you today? Explain the advice of Jesus to immediately show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices Moses commanded. Why do you think Jesus asked the leper to do this? What other story in the Bible does this event remind you of? The one that comes to mind would be the healing of the man by the pool, who was there for 38 years. So that one comes to mind. We did that story a few lessons ago. Very interesting story, lots to think about. So let's go ahead, fill in our sections here and make our comparisons.